It's 7 o'clock, Tuesday, October 18th. Zoning Board of Appeals for the Village of Plainfield is called to order. All rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Segebrough.
Here.
Mr. Renzi. Commissioner Menace.
Here.
Mr. Heinen. Mr. Womack.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Chairman Kiefer.
Present.
Park District. School District. Fire District. Library District.
Okay, in your packets for the zoning board, you have the minutes from our last meeting, which was held on August 16th, 2016. Are there any updates, amendments, or changes you would like to make? Okay, hearing none, the minutes from the August 16th meeting will be accepted as presented. At this time, we have set aside some time for anybody in the public that has a question for something that is not on our agenda. So again, anybody in the audience that has a question for something that is not on our agenda this evening, this would be the time to ask or bring it up. Okay, hearing none, we will move forward. Do we have a development report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, the Village Board did meet last night and took action on a few cases that were before the Plan Commission. The Village Board granted the final zoning or entitlement approvals for the Wash U car wash. So that included approval of an ordinance for the special use for the drive-through operation itself, approval of the preliminary and final plat of subdivision that created the 1 acre more or less lot for the development, and then approval of the site plan review itself. Separately, the Village Board directed the village attorney to prepare an ordinance that would implement a handful of zoning code text amendments that have been before the Plan Commission. This dates back some time. One relates to the regulation of a handful of uses, such as currency exchange or secondary financial markets, certain personal services that will now require a special use permit in lieu of being permitted by right. So Plan Commission may see an increase in special use requests in the future, depending on the level of interest in these types of uses.
What were some of the uses that were no longer by right?
So that includes a salon, tanning, body art in certain zoning districts, the secondary financial markets, so currency exchange, payday loan, title loan type businesses, flea market, and so forth. And there were a few ancillary amendments, one relating to signage, specifically prohibiting LED outlines of storefront windows, and then the text amendments would implement some formal regulations for food trucks. So food trucks would be formally addressed in the zoning code.
So those formerly acceptable uses now are going to trigger a special use request?
That's correct. Yeah, I know when the Plan Commission considered the case, there was some level of consensus for that treatment for flea markets. But I know the Plan Commission was not necessarily in favor of some of the other uses being the change in classification. I guess in addition, I would note this was the first time we've incorporated the Plan Commission recommendation in transmittal form, and that was well received. So I know at least one trustee identified that was a helpful tool in receiving the information. So that concludes the development report.
Thank you, Jonathan. We have nothing under old business, so we'll move directly into new business. We have one case before us this evening. It's case number 1739-093016.v, and it's for the property at 14858 South Flanders Lane. And it's a request for a variance, and the applicant is Nicole Poole. Do we have a staff report regarding this case?
Yes, we do. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The property in question is 14858 South Flanders Lane. The applicant is Nicole Poole. The request is for a variance. The property is zoned R3 Townhouse Residential District, and in the comprehensive plan is designated as multifamily residential. The applicant is seeking a variance to construct a a brick paver patio and fire pit in their backyard. The applicant has already installed a brick paver patio and fire pit in their backyard, and it encroaches into the required corner side yard by approximately 5 feet, and they are requesting a variance of 5 feet for this. The patio was already constructed pursuant to a building permit. However, the location constructed was deviated from what was approved on the building permit plans. The applicant is requesting that a variance be granted to allow them to keep their paver patio and fire pit as is by allowing a 5-foot encroachment on the required corner side yard setback. The applicant has stated that they could not achieve what they wanted to do within the bounds of the property setback lines due to the small width of the property. They have also stated that their patio cannot be seen from the front of their home, causes no sightline difficulties from the street, beautifies their neighborhood, and has been professionally constructed in such a way to allow for proper drainage. The applicant has also provided a petition with 47 signatures from 39 homes in the neighborhood in support of their patio and variance request, including 11 letters of support. Several residents complimented the functionality and aesthetics of the patio and fire pit and expressed concern over the potential nuisance created by further construction in the area to remove or modify the patio if the variance is not approved. In accordance with Section 933 of the Village's zoning ordinance, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall not recommend approval of, nor shall the Village Board grant a variance from the regulations of the zoning ordinance unless it makes the following findings based on the evidence presented. The petitioner is seeking relief from Section 9-14 of the zoning ordinance, which prohibits patios from being placed in the corner side yard. The first finding of fact is that the variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. As set forth in Section 9-4 of the zoning ordinance, the ordinance is adopted for a number of reasons, including the purpose of protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of the village, maintaining and promoting orderly land use patterns, protecting the quality of life for village residents, protecting the character of existing residential neighborhoods, and implementing the village's policies and goals to include those of the comprehensive plan. Staff submits that a 5-foot encroachment of a paver patio and fire pit into a corner side yard is mostly consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. However, it does not promote orderly land use patterns, since it creates a pattern of inconsistency whereby some corner side yards are allowed to be built upon, whereas others are not. B, the second finding of fact that needs to be made. The plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances, and thus strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance would result in practical difficulties or impose exceptional hardships due to the special and unusual conditions that are generally not found on other properties in the same zoning district. The applicant has not demonstrated a unique, unusual, or exceptional hardship in this case. The lot is wide enough to build a paver patio and fire pit of adequate size, and there are several examples of properties of the same or similar width within Fairfield Ridge where property owners have constructed paver patios and fire pits of similar aesthetics, functionality, and size that are within the bounds of the backyard and do not encroach on the required side yard or corner yard setbacks. The third finding of fact that needs to be made. The property cannot yield a reasonable use if permitted only under the conditions allowed by the zoning ordinance. Staff believes that the property can still yield a reasonable use if permitted only under the conditions allowed by the zoning ordinance. With more careful design, planning, and construction, the owner could have set out to achieve a paver patio and fire pit of high aesthetics, functionality, and adequate size that was entirely within the bounds of the backyard area without encroaching on the required corner side yard. And the final finding of fact that needs to be made is that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. It will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property. Staff believes that granting a variance in this case would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood and would not be a detriment to adjacent property. However, it could create future problems if the current or future property owner wishes to construct a fence fully enclosing their backyard, including the paver patio and fire pit, since construction of a fence would require yet another variance. Furthermore, staff believes that granting a variance in this case would set a precedent of allowing potentially endless individual exceptions to the zoning ordinance, particularly in cases where unique circumstances or exceptional hardship has not been adequately demonstrated. Granting a variance in this case would also encourage poor planning and neglect of the zoning ordinance regulations prior to commencing construction. Staff believes that patios should be more carefully designed to remain within the bounds of the backyard area, and or that the zoning ordinance be modified to allow greater relief and flexibility for all owners of corner lots. Based on the foregoing analysis, prior to the direction from the Zoning Board of Appeals, staff recommends denial. Should the Zoning Board of Appeals concur, the following motion is offered for your consideration. I move that we adopt the findings of fact as of staff as the findings of fact of the Zoning Board of Appeals and recommend denial of a variance to permit a paver brick patio and fire pit within the corner side yard for the property located at 14858 South Flanders Lane.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there anyone here representing the applicant? Could we get you to approach the microphone over here? Are you going to offer some testimony, or? Sure. Okay, we'd like you to go to that microphone, please. I have to swear you in. And I can swear you both in at the same time, so if you raise your right hand. Swear that all testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so please state your name for the recording secretary.
I'm Nicole Poole, and
I'm Richard Poole.
we're the residents at this property.
Okay, so please, if you'd like to add anything to the staff report or any testimony, please go ahead.
Yeah, we would just like to add, we also have a representative from the landscape company here as well. And when we originally got the application for the patio, we had all intention to stay within the guidelines. Initially, the patio, it was a mistake. And after speaking with our neighbors and everything about our patio, nobody seems to think that it's an issue, whether it has to do with our property or driving down the road or appearance or anything of that nature. So we just wanted to say that it was a mistake, and we weren't purposely trying to go against the rules. And now we're asking that because it was a mistake and there is so much that would need to go into it to move it. We can't just pick it up and move it over 5 feet, because then we're on a line on the other side of our property, and we can't squeeze it together and move it back, because then we're at another encroachment line on the back of our property as well. So that's why we're asking for you guys to consider letting us leave it be, so that there is no further construction bothering our neighbors, and everyone seems to think that it does beautify the subdivision.
All right, thank you. Please stay available. You can sit down right there if you want, but please stay available because the commissioners might have questions for you, and also the public.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case? If there's, please approach this microphone over here. I'm going to also have to swear you in as well, so.
No problem.
Do you swear that all testimony you can give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please state your name for the recording secretary.
Mike Carley, C-A-R-L-I.
And go home. Go ahead with your,
I
sorry,
live
go ahead with your
2
testimony.
doors down from the patio. I think a lot of our neighbors are actually going to be here. Just Cubs game started at 7:08, and unfortunately that threw off a bunch. They're all in the garage at like right where 303 is at. I just wanted to come here and show my support for my neighbors. I think all of us in the community actually wanted a patio like this. It's beautiful. It definitely promotes the subdivision. You know, our area was built in a very odd way, just because it was originally supposed to be alleyways, and when they took away that plan because the builder went under, these had to be rezoned. They're much narrower than they were originally going to be, and that's thrown a lot of us for a little loop when we're coming to getting our permits for zoning for patios and things like that. I had some issues myself, my neighbors. A lot of us have issues trying to get things approved just because of how narrow our yards are. And it was originally not supposed to be like that. So when they built theirs, you know, I hope I speak for most of us. A lot of us signed the petition, and you know, we all think it should stay and not put a hardship on the family.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anybody else from the audience that wants to comment on this case? Jonathan, did you mention there was a stack of letters that were submitted?
That's unrelated. That's
Unrelated,
for
it's a different case? Okay.
in case.
There are some letters of support that
Well, if it's going to be entered into the record, yeah, you would want to bring them up. So you do the petition, and you maybe you could address this if you want to step up to the microphone. So it's my understanding you had a petition sent around the neighbors. And
Yeah, our neighborhood is a very, very close-knit neighborhood, and a lot of us know each other. And just through conversation, I, have discussed this with our neighbors and what's going on, and I thought that it was right for them to be aware. So a lot of them reached out to me before I even made a petition and said, I really think that you should get a petition and get signatures because everyone does support you. And we even had extra neighbors reach out of their own will and write. I have 11 different letters in here from all of our neighbors who think that it should stay. And I have the letters with me if you want me to read any of them or.
Well, it's up to you, but if you do have letters of support and a petition from your neighborhood supporting your application, you do want to give it to our recording secretary so it gets entered into the record.
Sure, let me grab those.
Not hearing any other comments from the public, we're going to open up questioning to the commissioners. So commissioners, you're free to ask questions regarding this case.
I do have a number of questions. My first one is involving these pictures. Are these to be made part of the record as well?
Yes, these are going to be entered in as well. Those were, Andrew, were they submitted to you?
They're part of the file.
Okay, so they will go forward to the board.
And what I think that I've heard, and I guess this goes to staff, I think the letters and the petitions go to D, in that they would not alter the essential character of the locality. So I understand what staff is saying about a possible fence in the future, but that's somewhat speculative, so I would think that D should be an affirmative, and regardless of that, too, I think that's where the petitions go. And looking at A within harmony and purpose, it's kind of a stretch where you can say yes, and it's kind of a stretch looking at the pictures to say no, so I would think that would probably be neutral. The real problems, though, is I have with B and C. And I think that since we are an appointed body and we're supposed to follow what we perceive to be the dictates of statute and the trustees, I think that the best I can do for a calculation would be 1, 2, and 1. And I think that then leads me to support staff's recommendation that we deny it. And then if there's going to be an override, it comes from the trustees then. Because I think it's, well, my personal opinion of it, I've looked at the pictures, I also read the report. I live in a subdivision, I look at that, and I really have no comment other than as an appointed official, I'm supposed to follow what I believe to be the dictates of the law and the policy set forth by the village, and I can't make the variance. So I'm thinking of voting no.
Other commissioners?
We don't have any kind of a site plan, do we, for this lot that actually shows the actual setback lines and shows the patio?
We do
I mean,
have-
to be honest, these pictures are not all that helpful in illustrating where the setback line is and what the encroachment is.
We do have a plat of survey. Unfortunately,
Okay.
it doesn't show the patio.
Okay, but I'd like to see that.
Okay.
I guess my question is, I noticed the house has a covered, front porch, and that front porch seems to project beyond the side wall of the house. So, I mean, my first question is where the setback line actually was then.
Point.
So if I'm reading this right, wait, all right, can we get the? Let's see, you don't have pictures on here, right? Those are just the ones. Okay. So the covered front porch. Well, let's see here.
You're looking for the street view in the front?
This would be the front, so that
Right,
would be the
right,
door, yeah.
right,
It goes
right,
like
right.
that.
So,
That would be the porch.
right,
Side
Uh,
setback.
the side setback's here, yeah,
Yeah.
on the line of the house.
The front porch does stick out further than the patio.
Yes.
Okay. So that, I mean, if I'm reading the survey right, then, I mean, the side yard setback line is, which was, what, a 25-foot setback, I guess? Maybe, if I'm reading it right, yeah. That covered front porch was actually built projecting over the setback line as well. Am I reading that right?
I believe that's allowed, right?
Yeah, if I may address that briefly.
That would be allowed?
It was a
Okay.
permitted encroachment based on the plan development for Fairfield Ridge.
Okay.
The original approvals allowed for certain encroachments.
But that was after we changed, I mean, to the newer development.
That was even part of the original McMahon
original?
Builders
Okay.
development had certain stipulated encroachments that were
Okay.
permitted.
But, because, I mean, normally, like on a front yard setback, I mean, even a covered porch or anything like that's not allowed to project beyond the setback line. I mean, just for the benefit of the residents that are here, I mean, our commission went through a pretty extensive series of meetings working with the new developer to rework the subdivision to try to make it work. I mean, obviously, the original concept was the neo-traditional for the whole thing with the alleys, and obviously part of it was already built, and we wanted them to maintain part of that. But then, I mean, you're right, the lot sizes are different, or I guess you would say, maybe a little unusual, more narrow than what, lot sizes might be in just a regular standard subdivision. But I mean, this subdivision was reworked to make, so that they could work this. Okay, so, so if I'm looking at that, then if we're saying a 5-foot encroachment, then that the fire pit area probably doesn't encroach all that much more than that covered front porch already does in terms of that side yard.
Well, is the fire pit within,
that's what you know.
within the footprint of the house, right? It
Right.
doesn't extend past
The side wall of the house? No,
It's
I
pretty
think it
parallel
does.
to
You're
the
saying
line
it
of the
doesn't.
house.
Well, it
right
must.
at the line.
It's pretty,
Well, the line curves though. See, it's because the street's curving. So I
right.
think that's what's going on. I
The
mean, your
street
lot's
is-
a little unusual because that street starts to curve, and so your setback line starts.
And that's where the mistake was made when the patio was built itself
Okay,
too. It's
okay.
because of the street moved, and we thought that we were okay because of the house. It wasn't. It was a mistake.
Well, and generally, the one of the biggest concerns when you have a corner lot like that, when we say what's called a corner side yard, is we always say, your side yard is someone else's front yard. So in other words, your neighbors, in this case to the west of you, that's their front yard. And usually the objection to having that kind of a projection is that it's infringing on your neighbor's front yard view because they're looking down the street and they're, seeing something that's farther out than, say, the front of their houses were. Now, the thing that makes it unusual is the way the street curves. So in essence, the side of your lot is really farther out or beyond what all your neighbors are anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you don't really get that kind of vista effect if it was a straight street and they're all the front of their houses are lined up, and then suddenly they see something you built that's sticking out.
And our neighbors right behind us, which
Right.
is their front yard, they're the very first people that we actually got a letter from who are asking us to keep it.
I'm not saying this makes it right. And
Right.
I said a mistake was
But
made.
yes, because of the street.
But I do agree that it's a little bit unusual. I mean, the shape of your lot's unusual. What the street is doing is unusual. And the setback line and the fact that that front porch is already projecting beyond that line, maybe makes it a little less, I don't know, a little less objectionable.
Other commissioners?
Yeah, so, building on what Commissioner Renzi and Commissioner Segerbrook said, I think to summarize what Commissioner Segerbrook was saying, and I think he's kind of agreeing here, it is, for point B there, a unique, unusual, and exceptional hardship because the street curves, they had every intent to keep it in line with the footprint of the house. The homeowners, the street curve, the builder, contractor may have put something in error. Also, I think a very unique situation is this subdivision was built with, or approved with one set of developers' ideas in mind. Now, that developer went away due to economic hardship or whatever reasons. The new one comes in and changes the game. I think that alone is a unique set of circumstances. And on top of that, so I think we meet the points as Commissioner Renzi was going down the list to grant a variance. And also, I think we have to take a step back a little further. Variance. The whole point of a variance is to say, okay, yeah, we put together these rules, we put together these sets of regulations to try to give the best public good so that no one infringes on everyone else's right to enjoy their property, right to do what they want, and to have a happy life there. Well, I think, to me, it holds a lot of weight. 47 of the neighbors came by and said they support it, and especially the neighboring one, who, as Commissioner Segenbrook pointed out, should be the first one who would complain if it's impinging upon their ability, their freedom to enjoy their property. So my thought is we've shown the majority of these special variance points are met, as per Commissioner Renzi was talking about, and also just common sense. 47 of your neighbors think it's a good idea. We've seen the pictures. It's a nice, beautiful addition to the property. It's going to add value to the neighborhood. I don't think it makes any sense at all to just hold to these hard and fast rules and tear up something that adds value and will hurt their enjoyment that's only out of line because of a bizarre street and change in developers' plans. I think we have to support this.
Other commissioners?
Could you please explain, it explains in the report here that the location deviated from what you originally requested during your permit application. What drove that change? What is kind of the story behind why it?
When the patio was drawn, do you want to come up? Can I ask her to come up and speak? She's from the landscape company, so she would
I'll
be
have to swear her in, but yes.
Sure, thank you. Might be easier for you to explain.
Microphone, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Do you swear that all testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Can you please state your name for the recording secretary?
Sonia Mayorga.
Go ahead with your testimony.
Yeah, I'm the one who submit this application for the permit from Arnis Paving. And when I submit this permit, I'm not good in drawing, and we're supposed to draw this in a scale, and I try my best to draw in a scale. And I was like aware of these lines, so I just passed it just a little. It's not the entire patio, it's just a little bit. So that's my mistake.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Comments?
Well, I just wanted to, follow up on what I was saying before. I think Commissioner Green brought up some of the same points. I think he said them real well. One thing is I think you came here with a good attitude because, believe me, once in a while it's not easy for us always to sit in these chairs, and sometimes people come with, the attitude that they didn't make a mistake and, the village is wrong, and the village is being asked to, basically approve, what shouldn't have happened. But I think, you came in with a good attitude saying there was a mistake. It wasn't something you planned on doing and not something you're trying to get away with, But it does, every time we have to make a decision on a case like this, it does set a precedent, because you can see where if we say, yeah, we think it's okay to have the variance, you can see where another neighbor would say, well, gee, I should be able to have that same variance, so it's always, it's kind of a fine line we have to walk on that. I guess, to the landscape company, if that's a business you're in, you need to do a better job. There's no excuse for not drawing an accurate site plan, not knowing where the setback lines are. It's your mistake. You're really the one that's responsible more so than the homeowner. So, if you're in that business, you better make sure you get it right so that this kind of thing doesn't happen too often. But again, I think due to the uniqueness of the fact that this development, did go through a change and the fact we do have some unusual lots and the fact that your lot is kind of an unusual configuration where, you're not lined up directly with your neighbors. Your lot is actually, projecting farther out. So in essence, your house is already, if you're on that street farther down and you're looking east, you're not getting that straight vista anyway because the street's curving. So, I can see where your neighbors probably don't feel like it infringes on their view or, infringes on their rights. So, I think I'll be able to support the variance. I just want you to realize that every time we have to judge one of these, it's a serious matter. It's not something we do lightly.
Well, we do have, again, the application is for a variance. You have a recommendation of denial from the staff. The chair will entertain any motion from this commission, so
I'm
do we have a motion at this time?
I'd like to make a motion. I move we recommend granting a variance to permit a paver brick patio and fire pit within the corner side yard for the property located at 14858 South Flanders Lane.
I'll second that.
A motion has been made and seconded. Can we please get and it's a motion to approve the variance. Can we get a vote by roll call, please?
Commissioner Renzi? Commissioner Menace?
Yes.
Commissioner Walmack?
No.
Commissioner Segerbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Chairman Kiefer.
I'll vote yes. Okay, this motion passes.
4 to 2.
Correct?
4 to 2.
4 to 2. Recommendation will go on to the village board, and ultimately it will be up to them whether they approve this variance. So please be in touch with staff when that'll be on the village's agenda. Okay, thank you. The next scheduled meeting is November 7th for the village board, but you need to check with staff to see when it's placed on the agenda. Okay. That concludes the new business under the zoning board. Are there any other zoning issues that we need to talk about this evening? Or if not, we will move directly into the Plan Commission agenda. Okay, hearing none, we'll move right into the Plan Commission agenda. At 7:31, I will call that meeting into order. Can we get a quick roll call, please?
Commissioner Menace?
Here.
Commissioner Segerbrook?
Here.
Commissioner Renzi? Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Womack?
Here.
Commissioner Heinen? Chairman Kiefer.
Present.
Park District? School District? Fire District? Library District?
Okay, the agenda for the Plan Commission this evening. First of all, we have minutes from the October 4th, 2016 meeting. It's in your packet. Are there any items that you need to change or update or amend in the minutes?
I have a question, even though I wasn't there, which
Yes.
is why I read the minutes, see what I missed.
Sure.
The Will County case, should there be an outcome listed in there?
Well,
That's I know were we authorizing to send a letter or not? So
I
my
believe-
question is, shouldn't there be some reflected that there would be no action taken, or there was action taken, or?
Will County ultimately approved it already, so their timeline was faster than ours was. So
Okay,
Well, and the recommendation from staff was no action on the part of the village, in one way or the other, and there was no motion made, so basically we just had discussion regarding their case. So yeah, there was no action taken.
okay, well, there we go then. Okay.
I do have one correction, I guess.
Yes?
On page 3, about 2/3 of the way down the page, it's the fourth paragraph up from the bottom. I think it would read better, I mean, the first two sentences, I mean, they ask questions about the properties to the north and south of that development, but then the last sentence doesn't really relate to that topic. I think that, what I was trying to say, that the changes made by the applicant to their plan created a better plan, so it wasn't really in regards to the vacant properties, so you could maybe reword it to say the changes made by the applicant to their plan create a better plan or improve it, whatever you want to say.
Any other changes? Okay, the minutes will be approved as amended. At this time, do we have any public comments on anything not on our commission agenda this evening? Anything in the audience asking questions that are not on our agenda this evening? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. We've already had a development report, so no other updates from that. There is no old business for the Plan Commission, so we'll move directly into new business. The first two cases before us are somewhat related. So the first case we have is case number 1737-092616.REZ, and it's for 14918 Southeastern Avenue, and it's a request for rezoning, which is a public hearing, and the applicant is Clayton Olson. Do we have a planner's report on this case.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a rezoning request, this petition does require a public hearing, so staff would ask that the record reflect the appropriate notices have been mailed and published in accordance with state statute and local ordinance. In terms of the request that's before the commission, as the chairman noted, the two cases this evening are entirely related. In fact, staff would recommend proceeding with both or neither. Staff would not be comfortable rezoning the property without the accompanying plan development that we'll discuss here subsequently. But the request that's before the commission is to rezone a property that's on Eastern Avenue. It was subdivided sometime back, I believe 8 to 10 years ago. It was split off from the residential, the home to the south. It was a larger lot. The gentleman at the time was having difficulty selling the entire property, including the home and the lot, and was attempting to realize some value from the property. So he subdivided and sold the parcel that's before the commission this evening. In the intervening, I believe it's relatively 5 to 8 years. There's been little interest in developing the property as a home, building a new home here. In terms of site context in the general land use setting, to the north is the former Valentino box factory, which has undergone a fairly dramatic transformation in the last 5 years or so. To the east is primarily single-family residential. There is a group home just north of the railroad tracks. To the south and to the west are entirely single-family residential. The petitioner purchased the property with the intent of providing some additional parking for the existing mixed-use development that is subject to the subsequent here plan development petition. So there's the potential for some additional parking to serve the development, and as well in the future the potential for an office building that would be a third building that would provide kind of a bookend to the other two buildings here on Eastern Avenue and Center Street. The property is identified in the comprehensive plan as village residential density, as are the two industrial buildings that are currently zoned I-1. So the requested rezoning would be to change from R1 to I-1, which is office, research, and light industrial. That would be consistent with the two other parcels under common ownership. And then all three parcels would be subject to the plan development that the commission will hear next. In terms of staff's analysis, as the commission is well aware, there are 4 findings of fact that must be demonstrated. 5 findings of fact that must be demonstrated in order for the Plan Commission to recommend approval of a requested rezoning. The first of those findings is that the rezoning promotes the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare, and complies with the policies and plans of the village. Staff does believe that the additional parking and the potential for an office development that would be incorporated into the overall warehouse district project would advance several goals and objectives of the village's comprehensive plan. The additional parking would help meet some near-term parking demands that are being generated by existing businesses in the development, and the future office building has the potential to provide property tax revenue to the village, as well as employment opportunities. The second request, or the second finding that must be demonstrated, is that the trend of development in the area is consistent with the requested rezoning. Staff does note that this would be kind of a transitional area between the railroad tracks and the uses that are currently in proximity to the railroad tracks. So within the existing warehouse district properties, we have a distillery, we have a commercial brewery with a tap room, we have a coffee roastery, which have certain retail components to them. The brewery it has a sister business that's a homebrew supply or a brewery supply shop. We have office uses, formerly a fitness use that will be, definitely a transitional area. What was formerly primarily manufacturing. 10 years ago, the only reason somebody would have to go there is if you worked there or if you were a vendor, had a delivery to make and so forth. And that's very much changed with the current mix of tenants in the development. So the trend of development would support an additional office building that's incorporated into the project, but staff does acknowledge this would be transition, and staff feels that an appropriate site plan for that future office building would provide a great opportunity for achieving that transition, enclosing the potential impacts from the development, such as noise, light from the parking lot, and so forth, could be buffered by that future office building and a well-designed site plan. The third finding of fact is that the new zoning requested allows uses that are more suitable than those permitted under the existing zoning. So staff does feel that the potential for an office building, a high-quality office building, perhaps is more well-suited than for a new home, a new residence. Excuse me. Given the lot's proximity to the railroad tracks, which has undergone a significant increase in freight train traffic here over the last 5 years or so, increasing traffic on Eastern Avenue and so forth. So staff feels that an office use may be more suitable than a new residential use at this time. That's somewhat related to the fourth finding of fact that the property cannot yield a reasonable use under the existing zoning. Staff does feel that the market conditions have demonstrated there has not been significant interest in development of the lot for a new home of recent, and perhaps the office use would be more appropriate. And then the fifth finding of fact is that the rezoning would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, nor be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties. Staff notes that a proposed office construction would require future site plan review, and so staff and the public would be given an opportunity to review how that site plan is incorporated into the neighborhood. But staff feels there's adequate space for the site plan and associated landscaping and buffering to achieve that transition. And furthermore, again, staff reiterates we feel that building could be used as a land use buffer oriented to the north that would kind of enclose the current activities of the warehouse buildings and provide kind of a bookend and a clear transition to the single-family residential to the south. So in conclusion, staff feels that it is possible to demonstrate the findings of fact necessary for the Plan Commission to recommend approval. Certainly prior to the public hearing, and any questions or comments from the Commission, staff would be seeking a favorable recommendation. And that concludes the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience representing the applicant on this case? Is the applicant here this evening? Are you going to provide some testimony? Okay, so could we get you to approach that microphone, please? Raise your right hand, I'll swear you in. Do you swear that all testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the recording secretary, and then proceed with your testimony.
Clayton Olson. Well, Jonathan did a pretty good job in describing what we're trying to achieve here. The property has been, that we purchased, and we're talking about the a little more than a half-acre lot that adjoins our parking lot, would be helpful in, as he said, buffering the activity, bookending the property with an office building, one-story, nice modern-looking office building facing north and utilizing the parking lot in the daytime. That is not utilized very heavily right now, but it's more utilized for the event that we have on weekends. So it kind of feels like a natural to me, and it's kind of the way we looked at it.
Please stay available for questions either from the public or the commissioners. At this time, is there any questions from the audience regarding this case? Anyone in the audience would like to ask a question or comment on this case? Okay, hearing none, I'll open up questioning to the commissioners. I know there's a baseball game, but we've got to get through the case. Come on.
So one thing confused me, Jonathan, is it's I-1 zoning that they're going for, which is industrial, right?
I-1 zoning corresponds with office, research, and light industrial.
Okay, because I would agree that an office would be a good transition. Now, is there any way the village can require that if we give that broad-based I-1, that what goes in is a nice, good-looking, well-landscaped, maybe with a berm and some bushes and trees, something like that, office building, and not in the future, say the property's sold off, when it's combined, it's more attractive, and that someone decides to put in a machine shop or something, I mean, is there any way, my question to you, Jonathan, is any way the village staff can limit them to the office building that's being proposed?
Yes, in the subsequent case that the commission will consider, it's a plan development which actually eliminates certain industrial uses from the zoning district. And I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I believe they would be comfortable restricting uses at that building further.
And on top of that, whenever a building does come back, we would review the site plan.
And just following up on that, there's a lot of qualifiers in your A to E, coulds, mays, and I call them like qualifying rather than shall, definite words. My question to staff then is that simply because we have the next application and that's why you don't want to use the word shall, that if we view them all together, the coulds pretty much become more definite rather than speculative?
That's correct, yeah. I would not be comfortable blindly rezoning this parcel to a straight I-1 to Commissioner Green's point. I believe they really go hand in hand, and that's been the petitioner's intent all along.
John, is this parcel, and I, probably a few years ago now, we had a case where they were proposing to build something that was kind of a garage, kind of a building for parking of vehicles with
That's correct.
an apartment upstairs, I believe, or something to that effect. That was on the same lot, right?
Yeah, there was a proposal for a, essentially a storage
Kind of a storage building
facility that
for,
was,
antique vehicles maybe, or whatever it was
not
going to be.
proposed commercially, but
And that was by the prior owner that owned the lot to the south, right? The residential? Okay.
and
Is he-
that was a, I don't believe they were requesting rezoning at that time, so it was not
Right.
a ideal fit for residential zoning.
Yeah, because I think it had, I don't know, like an apartment or something with it or something. Yeah, it had parking for a lot of vehicles, and I remember, I don't even remember if we supported it or not. But obviously it didn't move ahead, so. I do remember there was a lot of discussion about the access to the east, out onto Eastern, and I don't know when, on the next case, if we're gonna see anything more detailed again of a site plan that, I'm hoping that if this development comes to pass, that he's gonna be able to create a better access out onto Eastern, something safer, because I seem to remember there were, parking along the railroad tracks and all kinds of things going on there that we were interested in trying to see them clean some of that up,
Full disclosure, there is not a site plan presented
Right.
in the subsequent case. I think the intent is to utilize the existing ingress egress. There would be the addition of a sidewalk on the west side of Eastern Avenue to provide pedestrian access into the development overall.
From my recollection, it was not a well-defined access. It was like all gravel, no curb and gutter, nothing was paved, and, so, I mean, I'm hoping when we eventually do get to a site plan review case that, we could actually look at that, because I remember that was one of the concerns we had were, vehicles and people, getting out right there by the railroad and everything else, so.
I have one comment, and then I'd like to speak to the case, but I would like the minutes to reflect the applicant is a client of the bank, not a client of mine. I don't believe there's a conflict of interest because I do have no financial gain, nor does the bank have any with respect to the rezoning or the planned development of the property. I would like to say that I do think it does make sense and kind of is a synergistic fit with the existing property. The redevelopment and repurposing of this site in particular, it's become somewhat of a destination, and I've been there a handful of times where, it would be nice if there was some additional parking. I think it would benefit the site a great deal. I also do think, given, as Jonathan spoke to, the proximity to the railroad tracks, that an R1 zoning would probably be, as it has sat for a while, it would probably continue to sit for a while. I think it'd be a challenge. So I'm I'm in support of the changing of the zoning, and I do think that it betters the existing property and it gives good future opportunities to the development.
Anything else?
No, I would reiterate what everybody said, that I think it's a great addition to what's already there, and when done properly, as we've kind of discussed and we'll discuss further, will provide a good buffer between the residents to the south and what goes on to the north there.
We done? The chair would entertain a motion at this time regarding this case.
Well, I can make a motion because for those interested in my scoring, I have it 401. So that allows me to move that we adopt the finding of fact as the findings of fact of the Planning Commission, and furthermore recommend approval of the map amendment, quote unquote rezoning of the parcel commonly known as 14918 Southeastern Avenue from R1 to I1.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded regarding this request. Can we get a vote by roll call, please?
Mr. Segerbrook,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Womack,
Yes.
Mr. Menace,
Yes.
Commissioner Renzi,
Yes.
Chairman Kiefer.
Yes. So this motion for the rezoning passes 6-0. Obviously, this will go forward to the village. You'll have to contact staff for when you'll be on the village's agenda. You may want to stay kind of close because we're going to go directly into the next case.
Thank you.
And our next case in front of us is case number 1738-092-616.SU for the warehouse district, and the request is for a special use for a planned development, and this includes the public hearing. Do we have a planner's report regarding this request?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as with the prior case, this request for plan development, a special use for plan development, would require a public hearing. The appropriate notices have been published and mailed. For site context, just a little bit of a broader land use context, very similar to the the prior case here. To the north, we've got the railroad right-of-way, and then District 202's warehouse and storage logistics facility there. To the east, we have a combination of townhomes, the Vintage Knoll subdivision, single-family detached. There's the group home on the east side of Eastern Avenue, and then primarily single-family residential to the south and to the west. The origins of the petition tonight, actually, let me step back. I'm going to preface with just a couple bits of supplemental information that weren't included in the report, so I regret not being a little bit more comprehensive. The subject property includes two parcels. One's on Center Street and one's on Eastern Avenue. It's under common ownership, the same owner. Over time, there have been, I believe, at least two special use approvals granted. The first was a plan development for, at the time, Chicago Brew Works, which is a home brew. It's now evolved into kind of a brewery supply business. So they supply brewing equipment and supplies for both home brewers and commercial brewers across the Chicagoland region. And a second special use was granted for Warehouse 109. It's a special event venue. The petition that's before the commission tonight would supplement those two. It would not override. It would not change. So those, the Chicago Brew Works business, which is expanding, and the Warehouse 109 business will continue to operate under their own independent special use approvals. So just for clarification. As I noted previously, these two parcels have evolved quite drastically over the last 5 to 10 years, in large part to the improvements that have been made by the petitioner here this evening. They've made some dramatic improvements to the appearance of the buildings themselves. So this one here is a view from Google Earth. It's somewhat dated. So the buildings overall have been upgraded from an appearance standpoint. The parking lot's been paved, and the uses as they've come in individually have led to quite an evolution, going from primarily a manufacturing or a light industrial focus to now what's somewhat of a destination for retail, the special event venue, the coffee roastery, the distillery, all Plainfield-based businesses that are making their mark here in the Chicago region. So I think it's something that we as a community should take pride in. Having said that, there have been a few requests from tenants to occupy the center for businesses that aren't permitted in the current I-1 zoning. And so staff and the petitioner have proposed adopting a plan development that would take into account this changing nature of the area with somewhat of a customized zoning wherein certain uses that aren't allowed in I-1 would be added and permitted, and where certain uses that are currently allowed by right in the industrial zoning district would be prohibited. So it would be kind of a hybrid zoning. And this is a strategy that was implemented at the Plainfield Small Business Park, which is where Katie O'Connor's is located, among other businesses. So that shopping center is owned I-1 with a similar plan development approach where we allow a credit union, where we've allowed restaurants, where we allowed music and dance instruction and things of that nature. So we have a template for it. We have a track record that, in my opinion, has worked successfully. And so that's what's being proposed here. In terms of some additional supplemental information, and I do apologize, I was somewhat rushed, and I also had an opportunity to coordinate with the petitioner subsequent to completing the staff report here late last week. These are the uses that are proposed to be added into the I-1 zoning. Anything from animal grooming, a bakery in the future, potentially a brew pub or microbrewery. Again, that would be independent of the Chicago Brew Works Workforce Brewing. There are a handful of uses that were requested, as noted in the staff report, and in coordinating with the applicant, and also staff's received some input from the adjacent property owners. The applicant is agreeing to withdraw the requested use for a tavern, a convenience store, a grocery store, or a supermarket. So what you see in strikeout here in red is listed in your staff report, but it is no longer being proposed. So those uses would not be included in the plan development. And then likewise, not identified in the staff report, but these are the uses that are currently allowed in the I-1 zoning district that the applicant would agree would now be prohibited under this plan development, kind of hybrid zoning. Things such as vehicle storage and towing, printing press, truck terminal, dry cleaning plant, things of that nature. So it's a significant downzoning in terms of the intensity of what uses could be permitted, while incorporating a handful of uses that staff feels would be a complement to those existing businesses, and where there has been some demonstrated interest specifically for a restaurant as well as for a body art service business. So returning to the staff report, I know there are a handful of findings of fact that must be demonstrated to recommend approval for a special use and specifically for a plan development. I won't go through each one of these, but just in a very generalized nature, staff believes that the new uses that are being proposed, as well as the uses that would be prohibited, would complement the adjacent area, would not be detrimental to adjacent properties, and would be consistent with the trend of development in the area. And once again, recognizing the potential for a third building, a new office building to be constructed on the Eastern Avenue lot that would really have the potential to be a bookend and provide a land use transition and a buffer. Staff feels that these new uses could be incorporated in a manner that would be compatible and complementary to both the existing warehouse district buildings as well as to the neighborhood as a whole. Without reiterating each of the findings of fact, staff would note that future building would require site plan review, that staff is recommending as a condition of this plan development approval, that the sidewalk on the west side of Eastern Avenue would be constructed along the parcel's frontage that was just proposed for rezoning. I believe the applicant is interested in achieving that pedestrian connectivity for the project as well, and would be agreeable to do such. So in conclusion, prior to any comments offered during the public hearing and in advance of discussion by the Plan Commission, staff would be seeking a favorable recommendation. That concludes the staff report.
Could you maybe clarify for the benefit of the commissioners, in staff report, you make reference to that you must demonstrate 2 findings of fact, and then your report goes into 11 findings of fact. What's
Right,
pertinent?
so our plan developments are approved by special use. It's a special use for a plan development. So you have both the 2, I'll call them general or generic findings that apply for all special uses, and then there must be 9 additional findings that are specific to a plan development.
Thank you for that clarification. Is someone here representing the applicant? You remain under oath, right? Do we have to swear him again? Do you have any comments you'd like to make regarding this applicant?
I forgot how bad it did look when I started. The one question was brought up, why don't we just rezone it to, I don't know what the next zoning would be, the down zoning, and give up the industrial zoning? We still do have some light industrial uses in there, and then would we be going back for a special use for those uses? We have a company that makes displays for McCormick Place on all their when they have special events in McCormick Place. So we do have light industrial happening in that building, within that building in some of the units. But I think with the removal of quite a few of the industrial uses that I have applicable right now, I think it's more customized it to what the building is actually being utilized for.
Please remain available for any questions we might have for you. At this time, is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question regarding this case? Well, if you'd like to, please step over here. And I'll need to swear you in.
And Mr. Menace, if you may, the residents here have prepared some comments and have provided copies for the commission.
I'm going to need to swear you in. If you want to both raise your hands.
Sure. Right.
So, do you swear that all testimony you're about to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the recording secretary and go ahead with your testimony.
Jim Phelps, Phelps.
Rose Phelps.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you could follow along with what we have put together, and also a compliment to Jonathan that some of these were revelations where some of the items that would have been in an original zoning request were retracted as early as today. But we'd like to go through this with you and point out exactly what we've put together. So if you could follow along, it said we've reviewed the staff report for the proposed PUD. Obviously, you can see the case number, and it was also on the screen. And as the owners of the greatest number of residential homes abutting the warehouse district property, we have several concerns. Lifelong residents of Plainfield developed the properties across from the warehouse district and have tried to be good neighbors to the surrounding neighborhood. I might also add, years past, this planning commission allowed us to do 2 infill projects, which were new homes and probably certainly raised the value of a lot of the properties within the area as well. But first of all, we agree that Clayton and Deborah Olson have improved the former box factory property overall. A few problems arisen with a few tenants in the complex, but the Olsons have addressed those problems in a very timely fashion. Secondly, the staff report identifies the property east of the Olson property as railroad right-of-way, when in fact there are several single-family residents in front on the eastern edge of the Olson property. And in fact, the majority of the parcels are single-family residential properties in the area. The biggest problem we've seen in the neighborhood, and we live on Bartlett Street, is that the property is often a victim of its own success. Many times, several of the tenants have concurrent special events that led to parking lot being filled to capacity, additional cars, parking on the adjoining neighborhood streets. When Center Street was recently repaved, no curbs were installed to help define street parking and to prevent parking on sidewalks or private property. Eastern Avenue is also designed in the same fashion. We believe that some of the proposed uses will only increase parking and traffic problems on the site within the adjoining neighborhoods. Now, they might have removed item K. Item K in the staff report states that the land uses are not of such a nature or so located as to exercise a detrimental influence on the surrounding area. We disagree with the staff findings on item K. Rose?
The Chicago Brew Works and Workforce Brewing and the Tailwoods Distilling, they've been successful with their tasting and sampling rooms. We ask that these business liquor licenses continue as they are now, and that they be limited to serving only the alcohol products they produce, and that there's no outside table service or like we have downtown, the downtown business district, that it's contained within the building. The next paragraph kind of reviews what he already said, that the changes that he's made. But we do question the following uses, and we ask that these not be approved that he had up there. He would like to have a liquor store, packaged liquor, or a liquor store accessory. We would not like to see that go through. We wouldn't like to see an auto supply store which includes auto service, and we would not like a motorcycle sales and service because of the noise associated with the motorcycles in a residential area. The residents of Bartlett Avenue, Center Street, and Eastern Avenue experience ever-increasing amounts of cut-through traffic as it is. These proposed uses, if permitted, would only add to the number of vehicles passing through our neighborhood. We do not believe that the proposed types of liquor sales, liquor store, packaged or accessory, in close proximity to Indian Trail and the alternative high school, that does not to us represent good planning and neighborliness. If these uses are allowed, we would ask that the above businesses be limited to hours of operations between 10 and 6 p.m.
Finally, it would seem that this is an opportune time to downzone the property to business-oriented PUD rather than industrial-oriented PUD. The industrial zoning is no longer appropriate in the neighborhood as the Olsons have developed their property. Historically, when Plainfield was significantly smaller, this area was on the edge of town and ideally suited for industrial uses, located along the railroad line. However, in a contemporary sense, the land between Center Street and Eastern Avenue is not even ideal industrial property any longer, meaning reflecting back to maybe this hybridized zoning that they're proposing. Our goal is not to unnecessarily hinder their business objectives. However, we would hope that the Plan Commission and Village Board would respect the character of our neighborhoods, Plainfield's first designated historic district, instead of industrial zoning with specific business uses identified. We believe that a business-based PUD with specifically identified business types, including the types of industrial uses now existing, would be more appropriate method to which to meet the Olson's goals and maintain the livability and peacefulness of the surrounding residential neighborhoods. It is our hope the Plan Commission takes the time to consider this application and make a decision that reflects the interest of the residential properties and defer a vote at this point in time to allow further reflection on a decision that will have a very serious impact on the surrounding neighborhood. We thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Olson, would you like to care to comment on any of those issues that have been brought up?
One probably touches pretty close to me. My motorcycle is,
I thought of that.
I am a antique motorcycle collector, preservationist, restore. I deal in antique motorcycles. So for me not to do my hobby side business there, which I do, that can't happen.
Well, that would fit in where the commission sees fit to hybridize this zoning, to make sure that we have the residential area and the historic district preserved, and to be able to withdraw and add portions to that are permittable.
I don't see a Honda dealer or a Harley Davidson dealer showing up there, but I do have a business named CJ Vintage that I deal with my old motorcycles.
Okay, well, I don't want to entertain a discussion going back
No,
and forth. I just
no,
wanted to
and
address
that's
the
all I had to
points.
say,
I appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to comment on this case? Okay, not hearing any, I will open it up to the commissioners. You're free to comment and ask questions.
Well, I guess I can start, because I had gone through the list. Before I forget, I do want to commend the applicant for getting rid of various things that were originally marked, because I didn't really think they were appropriate for that area. I do share the same concerns, though, that the other people did about the liquor stores, and also the body art service, too. I know we've had a lot of discussion about where body art is supposed to be. So my question to staff is then, first, as to liquor store, whether it's packaged goods or as an accessory use, do you see any problem with it beyond what's there now? I understand we have a brewery, but just up the street is the middle school.
So what kind of prompted this zoning case, it was a request for two businesses that aren't currently permitted. You know, one would be potentially a restaurant and the other is the body art service. Staff and the applicant kind of took this as an opportunity to look comprehensively at the types of businesses that we would foresee as potential. And relative to a liquor store, it wouldn't be your typical ABC liquors that at least staff envisions. It's more the potential for a specialty wine shop or something that would play off of the existing distillery and the brewery there. So I think it's certainly a fair concern with merit and how we distinguish that type of business. I'm not sure how to define it, but you know, staff would not want to see your run-of-the-mill liquor store where you could stop and get 12-pack, a case of beer, what have you. It's more related to the overall kind of vision for what the development could be.
Should that then not be a liquor store under a special use would be allowed? And that way, if someone were to come in and say, yeah, I'm going to sell kegs, and we can say no. But if someone says, well, yeah, I have a wine tasting room, and we're going to have imported wines, and maybe some cheeses and stuff like that, we say, oh, okay. And then we would grant the special use?
That's this process would certainly allow for that. So the Plan Commission could identify, your recommendation is you would be comfortable with the liquor store as a special use in this plan development. So any business that wanted to operate would be back before the Plan Commission.
And also to clarify from your point earlier in your development report, the body art services are also going to require a special use now and a special hearing anyway.
That would be in the B3 zoning district.
Not here.
Okay, so not here under.
So it would be what the staff's proposal or what's before the commission would be to allow that by right.
Okay, and so if I understand the give and take between the applicants as to the applicant and the witness, motorcycle sales and service, we could then either have a special use permit or we could just simply insert antique motorcycle sales, and that way we would avoid the Harley Davidson or Honda dealership coming in. Not that they would, but if we
That's entirely possible. Yeah, that would be.
And let me ask would that be something that you could do if we were just simply have the antique motorcycle sales and ancillary service as opposed to quote-unquote full service?
95% of my sales, which I do very little of, are antique. I do sell a newer motorcycle now and then that would not be considered antique. Like I sold a 1980 Honda last week. So I don't know if that's antique or not. I would say I would not be looking for a new dealership. I don't think a new dealership would fit there. I don't think it would be successful there. I don't think that's the place for it. I have a shop that.
I mean, it could conceivably be successful because there's enough major streets that if somebody wanted to do it as a destination, they possibly could. I tend to agree that it wouldn't be my first place that I would put one, but I think that someone with the right advertising, possibly, if the price was right for the space, get the space and then just use it. So I do have one more concern, though. You had said the Plainfield, whatever, it's on Route 30 by 143rd.
So staff refers to it as the Plainfield Small Business Park.
But that's on Route 30, and there's ample parking there because it goes all the way back. It's a huge space.
Sure.
And also, ingress and egress is somewhat limited because you have to get on the property to park, whereas this is, residential, and this, the witness said no, even curbs or any sort of thing, delineation for parking on the street. So is there any concern that you would have, first, with identifying any of the retail or other high commerce, or which would bring a lot of cars to and from, we would presume, high traffic?
I think and as the petitioner made reference as well, the mix of uses is diverse in terms of the times of day where you would experience a peak. I think the largest single parking generator is probably the special event venue, which you will typically experience, potentially a Friday night, but Saturdays, maybe on Sundays, whereas a retail business, a body art, some of the other office uses that are currently permitted or would be permitted would have their peak parking demand weekdays during the day. So there's a little bit of a off-peak. Staff will offer, just as an observation, the parking lot has been expanded somewhat recently. So when there has been some pressure for on-street parking on Center Street or Eastern Avenue over the last year or so, I think the petitioner or the property owner has already addressed that by expanding the parking lot on the existing property. And then the property that was purchased more recently would provide opportunity for some additional off-street parking.
And finally, just, I think way back when, they've probably designed as more residential traffic for the streets. And now with 126 and, what was that, Lockport Street, these like Mill, Eastern, and Center, they do form cut-through streets. Is there anything we can do with the traffic? I know that there is one street that has the traffic calming devices. Center Street, yeah. Is something like that envisioned for Eastern, or are we just going to let the people go up those streets as well? I'm just thinking, what's the planning behind it?
That's a topic staff could raise with our traffic committee and get input from the police department, fire department, the school district, park district, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
I know from a philosophical standpoint, that's the question of cut-through traffic versus public streets, allowing people to efficiently get where they're trying to go is a double-edged coin. So
I tend to be a cut-through driver.
And this isn't a new issue for the traffic committee. They understand the challenges of those residents and the people who use those streets.
Well, I'd like to weigh in on this. I think from the previous motion and the way it passed, I think there is support to expand the businesses here by some of the uses that are down here. And I think the petitioners came on in and even agreed. They would not mind, and they didn't think it would impinge upon their usage and enjoyment of their properties. And considering that this is both a light industrial area existing with a rail line right there, which is a rare enough property or asset for the community for the tax base and development. And it's also bordering another very valuable asset of Plainfield, which is the historical residential district. I think we have to go very carefully moving ahead with this and picking the land uses that we're going to approve Other commissioners here, my thoughts are that we just go down this list that we have in front of us here and see what kind of support we have for going with each of these so that we can build together a consensus and determine which ones there's support for, which ones the petitioners who have weighed in already can live with, and which are not going to, harm the free use of the property of the owner. So,
Well, I think you're certainly within your opinion to voice support or, opposition to any one of those things that are listed. But I have some concerns when you talk about, we've rezoned it in the previous case. When you talk about allowed legal uses, and then we're going back and the applicant has agreed to drop some of those uses, I have a little bit of concern of over legislating what's allowed, especially for illegal use. Keep in mind, we're looking at the special use for the planned development. Any building that actually goes in there will have to come back before us for a site plan. So we will have a chance to weigh in on that too. My own personal feeling is I think this list is fairly restrictive as is, but I will entertain the commissioner's views as well.
Well, I think, based on the testimony we've already heard and based on the past experience we've had with this property, I think we can agree. Obviously, it's evolved from what was strictly originally an industrial building to, to some of the uses he's got in there now. And it seems like the ones that are in there now seem to work pretty well together. And it seemed when you go down the list up and down, and certainly thinking about the residential neighborhood and the traffic, probably the last thing we want to do is encourage essentially what you would call, typical retail uses that are going to drive a lot of traffic. I think it's okay to say it's more of a destination building where, people are going there for a special event, or, again, if they're going to a winery or, a brewery for a little tour and then maybe to buy something. The retail is kind of more the accessory part of it, but they're going there more for the event part of it. So you're not like driving regular retail traffic. So, again, where we say liquor store, I don't like the idea of saying store because that's implying more of a regular retail use, which I don't think we should be encouraging, right next to a residential neighborhood.
Well, I think Jonathan's clarification
right.
helped clean that up.
Sure,
Is there a way you could word that in?
But I think if we
recommendation?
say, hey, it's, might be a winery again, or something that's more of a specialty shop that's not, again, a typical, what people would construe as a liquor store, I think we could probably agree on that. Again.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Commissioner
go ahead.
Segerbrook, I apologize for the interruption. Specific to that, I actually like the commission's suggestion of making that a special use. So that way, there would be a public hearing involved.
Sure.
The commission and the board of trustees could ultimately weigh in, but that would be one way of kind of vetting and making sure that it's consistent with the vision that I think we collectively have today.
Yeah, and it would be going through a liquor license process as well, right? So if it's that kind of a use. So, I think in general, a lot of the uses I think are fine, and obviously depending on what he comes forward with for this new building, some of the uses might be better suited in the new building if it's more of a traditional office kind of a use, something like that, as opposed to being in, the older industrial building. But, we also have to be sensitive to the fact that, hey, it is next to a railroad, it's next to a residential area. But think about it, we've got Lockport Street, we've got the Raylock building that there's been a big development, investment put in there. We'd certainly like to see something go in that building, like maybe a microbrewery or something too. So, again, we don't want to be, again, a victim of success where we're trying to, create more of a retail district over there or something to that effect that, in essence, could pull away from the downtown. But yet, I think with what he's already developed there, I think the uses, again, are kind of a mix where it's not really, again, it's not drawing traffic just off the street that's passing by. It's more of a destination where people are going there for a reason because there's a specialty business there that they're not going to be able to find just driving down Route 59 or Route 30 or whatever.
Since it seems like we're moving towards some sort of motion, perhaps, I just want to put on out there that I support most of the usages of the properties on the list, but I cannot support the body art service. It's so close to the junior high and to the residential district. I think that is out of out of place in that sort of area. And also, I would have to take, the side of the petitioner and saying that potentially the two liquor store uses also would be out of place. So if we move forward with a motion minus those three, I can support it, but if those are in there, I will not support it. So just want to explain where we're kind of headed.
Yeah, I think already the petitioner and the user have come to a pretty good agreement here. I think there's a good compromise on both ends. Obviously, I think each would like one or two of the other things on the list to go through. I support the vision as well for what they have here. I will say the biggest difference I see to the Katie O'Connor type development, in addition to what Commissioner Renzi said with traffic, was obviously the proximity to residential. This one abutting right next to it as opposed to there, it doesn't. The other question I had was heavy truck traffic for any deliveries to any of these type of uses would be solely off of what, 126? Is that the only approved truck route coming south and down Center Street?
Correct. That's a fair question. I think there are a couple businesses here that have the potential for generating deliveries. One would be the Workforce Brewing, which again isn't subject to this plan development. They have their own plan development. This has been disclosed publicly. They're expanding, so they're actually going to occupy some more space in the overall center here. They will be on the end of the building. So if I go back to an aerial view, so they're going to have an expanded brewing operation on the, if you want to call that the north or west end, which has access to a loading dock there directly. So I would anticipate any larger vehicular deliveries would come via Route 126 and Center Street.
Truck traffic is south of our property. There's no truck route south of the property. Okay. There's a letter that goes with the lease to all tenants that identifies that if they have truck traffic, they have to come from 126 from the north.
And I've also attended events there, and a lot of the parking tends to spill over. Actually, this is good, kind of to the northwest there. Is that property that you own as well, or is that
northwest?
northwest? This is the end of our property right here. Yep. Okay. Yeah. You don't have anything to do with up there. It's just people tend to sort of seek the closest parking that they can find when events are going. Is there any coordination between the different tenants and when they're having different events for parking considerations?
Common calendar that everyone publishes when they have their events, and everyone works together to try to, we have Warehouse 109, which has wedding events, and we have the dog shows there about once every month or two, and she coordinates it when there's off times for that. But hers typically on a Saturday day and Sunday day. The warehouse has the wedding events on Friday nights or Saturday nights, so they don't conflict. Really, the only conflict we have is when Brewworks has a food truck, and that is soon to go away with this expansion. That will not happen anymore.
And you said the fitness tenant that had been in there is gone now, right?
I had a decision to make.
Okay, because I do recall that there was a lot of discussion from the neighbors
there's a
about
lot
the amount of
of outcry.
noise that they were generating. Yeah.
It's uncomfortable for me. I was nervous that someone was going to get hurt, and because they ran on the streets. And
Right.
his lease is up the end of this year, and I elected not to renew it.
Any other questions or comments on the case before us?
I would just, take an opportunity to state that I think the development plan here with the list, I think it is pretty restrictive. I think a lot of these uses do kind of work with what the property has redeveloped into where it is today. I can understand some of the concerns, but I also understand that we would have the opportunity to look at a majority of these as the property goes to the next stage of development. And we would obviously be able to have further conversations at that time. So I think the applicant's done a good job working with staff and appears to have been reasonable on some of his, cutting back on some of the list and making some modifications, as we've spoken about tonight with respect to some of the liquor you know, liquor store uses being a special use. So I'm in favor. I support the way the list is proposed here.
And I apologize, but I do have one more question about the auto supply, auto accessory. Is that automatically come with service as well, or is that like a Napa where you go and they give you the stuff and you leave?
Correct, yeah. So auto service is a separate category, and that's not being proposed. I will acknowledge that some businesses have contacted us and they say, we're mostly a wholesaler, but if somebody wants some help putting on a fin or, a, you know, what have you, there is, you know, room for some interpretation there.
It wouldn't include service bays or.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, if you were to attract that kind of tenant, do you think it might tend to be along the lines of your motorcycle business, where maybe it's more vintage
don't see
type stuff, or you just don't think it would happen?
We've had auto repair people that
Oh, yeah.
truck repair, and we've turned them away.
Yeah.
The potential anticipation of building the new office building, we manage all the leases ourselves. It would be we'd be very cognizant of the tenant that they would be a daytime use only, because the parking lot is overbuilt for the building, and 70% or 90% of that parking lot just sits empty.
Mhm.
We would utilize that office for that parking lot. That's kind of helps offset the cost of building the building. I got a parking lot, let's use it. So we would look for that type of tenant.
I'll just throw it out here now. Mr. Olson, would you be willing to withdraw the 2 liquor store usages and the body art usage?
Store usages, I would have a concern that I have no intention and no desire to have a true liquor store there. I do have Tailwinds and Chicago Brew Works that sells their product. And I go in there, I'll buy a small pony keg, and we'll come out of there with it. Is that considered a liquor store? I'm buying liquor to go.
What about the body art?
Body art, that confuses me, because I'm not sure where that really affects the neighborhood.
I think what it would be a lot of traffic at odd hours. So that's why I would, you know, put that as
I don't know.
I would put that as one thing I'd really like to see.
Again,
Guess I
I've
would
voiced
say
concerns
when I
about
go-
overly restricting our, some
Well,
of the news.
he hasn't
So
said
it's-
yes or no
I
yet,
know that.
so I would like to hear an answer. Is that in order, Jonathan? Yes or no?
I could rule you in order or not. I will let you continue.
When I go to Chicago Brew Works, and I sit there and have a 5-ounce beer and taste this new beer, 90% of the people there have tattoos. So I guess we're saying that we don't want those type of people there to get a tattoo, but they can come there and buy a beer. So to me, you know, I'm older, but I still understand that. I think it's a new thing. It's not what the sailor used to be. Get drunk, go get a tattoo. I think it's a different story now. I think it's a studio is what it is.
And I would call attention to some of the current body art studios in town. I think most of them are fairly well run. Some of them would even be considered high end, I think, almost like a salon. I have concerns when we try to over restrict people for legally conforming uses and telling them they can't bring businesses that are legal in the village zoned in that appropriate manner. That's my opinion.
Well, again, I think my feeling was any of these uses I think could possibly work there. It's just, you know, I want to make sure we're always kind of thinking again towards the, you know, we're not posing this as a retail destination where we're trying to drive traffic off of 126 and 59 over through a residential neighborhood here. I mean, again, if the kind of specialty businesses he's attracting there, it is a destination. As long as he's got sufficient parking where people can go there and park and not disturb the neighborhood, I think it works. But I just, you know, we want to make sure we're not, you know, encouraging, you know, just what you would say is traditional retail development. I just don't think it's a good location.
If discussion is ended, the chair would entertain a motion regarding this application.
Well, I just have one question as a precursor before I can make a motion. My understanding is that we're looking again on staff's report, page 2 of 5, all the indebted stuff. So there were some stricken by agreement. And I believe liquor stores were subject to special use applications. Is that what?
I think that that's been staff's understanding of kind of the consensus tone and tenor of the commission's discussion. Staff feels it's appropriate.
Yeah, and I think there's consensus, like, nobody wants to see like a Benny's or something, even, you know, a lower end liquor store go in there.
And then
That's not the intent.
my only question is, if I want to do that, can I just insert, or where would I insert that in the motion then? Or where would staff feel that it's, the list as amended? Where would that go in the motion? Because
So that could
we're
be
not
a-
really it's not changing the finding of facts.
So you could include a third stipulation that
Compliance with
provided that the following uses would only be permitted subject to a future special use consideration.
And I'd like to
i.e.
also remind everybody too that Commissioner Green's comments will also be part of the public record. They will go forward. I hope those would be referenced in the highlight sheet that we've been including prior to our minutes. So this would be something I think would be very appropriate, where we had some significant discussion and Commissioner Green has raised some important issues regarding what he thinks is appropriate there. I would like the board to be aware of that as well.
Thank you.
So if I understand it right, I will go then. I move that we adopt the finding of fact of staff as the finding of facts of the Plan Commission, and furthermore recommend approval of the proposed plan development for the warehouse district at 14903 South Center Street and 14912 and 14918 Southeastern, subject to the 3 stipulations, the 2 contained in the planner's report, and the 3rd one, which is compliance with the limiting uses as amended on page 2 of 5 of the planner's report, with special use applications being required for the liquor store entries.
Motion has been made.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded regarding this application, and including the 2 stipulations found in the planner's report, as well as the 3rd one added by Commissioner Renzi. Can we get a vote by roll call, please?
Commissioner Green,
No?
Commissioner Womack,
Yes.
Commissioner Menace,
Yes.
Commissioner Segerbrook,
Yes.
Commissioner Renzi,
Yes.
Chairman Kiefer.
Yes. So this motion, as amended and presented, passes 5-1. I would also like to point out to the audience that the comments that you made are also part of the public record. This statement that you read and submitted, this will become part of the record as well. This also goes forward to the village board for consideration. So your point is noted. What will happen now is it will be forwarded on to the village board, so please stay in contact with staff when that might appear on their agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you for your application. Good luck. Those are the only 2 cases we had this evening. We have some time for open discussion if there's anything any of the commissioners would like to bring up.
I just, I know, don't want to keep people too long, but could we get, do you have any update on what's going on with 127th Street? I know the project was supposed to start a week ago, and then it was announced it was being postponed a week. It was supposed to have started Monday, and I still don't think they've really fully, yeah, it's still not closed. So is there some problem or something going on?
Yeah, the Public Works Department, our Public Works Director and engineering staff are working closely with deconstruction. Deconstruction has a number of projects active in the village of Plainfield and in the region. They met as recently as last Thursday to review the project schedules on each of those projects. It was an opportunity for the village to identify priorities. Our recommendations were for them not to close 127th Street unnecessarily, potentially giving them the opportunity to do some work next spring. If they could consolidate some activities that required a road closure. Their preference was to pursue a closure this fall and knock out some of the items, complete a certain percentage of their scope of work and get a jump on the project. we gave them some pretty strict direction that we didn't want them to close the road and then not do any work. That wouldn't be good for anybody. So I think they're evaluating whether all of the necessary precursors to that start of construction are locked and loaded and kind of ready to go before they proceed with that road closure.
Yeah, because I think from what we had read or heard, I mean, I know they had talked about they were going to do a set period of work for this fall, and then I thought reopen the road over the winter and then close it again in the spring. I thought was the idea,
It's
but
maybe a little bit more detail than perhaps the commission's interested in, but they were going to do some storm sewer work and some culvert crossings and so forth. There is a large box culvert there at the
Right.
West Norman Drain that's on delivery. It's not here yet, so the village, we're trying to encourage them, I think, to work in what our opinion would be most efficiently to minimize the duration of road closures, but they kind of are charting their, what they would like to do as well. So, but the communication, the coordination is very much active.
oh, okay. I just because once in a while we get asked questions like that, and I just like to know what's going on. So
I'd also like to remind everybody that the next scheduled Plan Commission meeting is for November 1st, and the village board meeting is scheduled for November 7th. Okay, with that, no other comments. 8:40, we will call this meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming. Oh, no, no, no. No, I get it.